Keyingi sectionga o'tamiz. Section 3 va
That is the end of section 2.
sharap. Section 3 ga o'tamiz va section 3 qiyinroq bo'ladi bu. Ozroq qiyinroq bo'ladi, xafa bo'lmaysizlar. Keling, section 3, questions 21 to 30, questions 21 to 23, ABC multiple choice questions. Paper on public libraries. Demak, public library'dagi jamoat kutubxonalaridagi qog'oz. What will be the main topic of Trudy and Stewart's paper? Qog'oz emas ekan bu, ish ekan. Qanaqadir kurs uchun shunaqa ish bo'ladi bu paper. Trudy bilan Stewartning main topic nima ekan? How public library services are organized in different countries. Turli xil davlatlarda qanaqa organizatsiya qilinishi, how changes in public change in society affect qilgani, public how the funding changed. Finansирование societyda o'zgarishlar turli xil davlatlardagi organizatsiyasi. They agree. Ular agree qilish kerak. Men agree qilmayman, men agree qilaman degan gap bor. One advantage of free digitalized books is that demak, tekin raqamlashtirilgan kitoblarni bitta yomon tomoni ular agree qiladi ekan. Long time to read, ko'p vaqt ketadi o'qishga. O'qish qiyin. Generally too old. Generally old qisqasi. Eski kitoblar. Stewart expects that the future libraries will. Demak, Stewart kutarkanki, kelajakdagi librarylar, kutubxonalar nima bo'ladi? Stewart tushunishingiz kerak, chunki Trudy ham gapirib qolishi mumkin. Maintain their traditional function. O'zini traditsion funksiyasini saqlab qoladi ekan. Center for local community uchun center bo'ladi. Umuman kitob o'zida sajrat qilmaydi. Boshladik.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 23.
Let's go.
Okay, Stuart. We need to start planning our paper on public libraries. Have you thought of an angle yet?
Well, there's so much we could look into. How libraries have changed over the centuries, for instance, or how different countries organize them. What do you think, Trudy?
Maybe we should concentrate on this country and try and relate the changes in libraries to external developments, like the fact that far more people can read than a century ago, and that the local population may speak lots of different languages.
We could include something about changes in the source of funding, too.
Yes, but remember we're only supposed to write a short paper, so it's probably best if we don't go into funding in any detail.
Right. Well,
Xo'p, nima dedi? Trudy so'radi, Stewart nima qilamiz dedi? Ko'p narsalarni ko'rishimiz mumkin. Turli xil davlatlarni ko'rishimiz mumkin, butun turli xil vaqtlar davomida o'zgarishlar, societyda o'zgarishlarni ko'rishimiz mumkin edi, funding ko'rishimiz mumkin edi. Funding ololmaymiz chunki short paper dedi. Bitta davlatda shu countryga qilaylik, fokus qilaylik dedi. O'sha uchun ham qoldi. Mana Stewart, there's so much we need to look into how libraries have changed over the centuries, for instance, how different countries organize them. Mana over the century dedi, qanaqa change bo'lgani, B dedi yoki A dedi. What do you think dedi? Maybe we should concentrate on this country. Demak, A chiqib ketdi. Bitta davlatda ko'raylik, relate the changes in libraries to external developments like the fact that far more people can read than century ago. May speak lots of languages. Bu B bo'ldi. Funding, source of funding bilan qilaylik dedi. Yes, but remember only supposed to write a short detail. Faqatgina short paper yozamiz. Shuning uchun ham funding haqida detalni gapira olmaymiz. O'sha uchun ham yaxshi ideya emas edi. O'sha uchun ham faqatgina javob B bo'lib qoldi. Keyingiga o'tamiz.
Do we just brainstorm a few ideas to get started?
Okay. We obviously need to look at the impact of new technology, particularly the internet. Now that lots of books are being digitalized, people can access them from their own computers at home.
And if everyone did that, libraries would be obsolete.
Yes.
But the digitalized books that are available online for free are mostly out of copyright, aren't they? And copyright in this country lasts for 70 years after the author dies. So you won't find the latest bestseller or up-to-date information.
That's an important point. Anyway, I find it hard to concentrate when I'm reading a long text on a screen. I'd much rather read a physical book. And it takes longer to read on a screen.
Oh, I prefer it. I suppose it's just a personal preference.
I expect the libraries will go...
Stop. Xo'p, nima bo'ldi? O'zgarishlarni ko'rishimiz kerak dedi. Masalan, digitalized book bo'lish kerak dedi. Stewart aytdi. After vafot etgandan keyin 70 yildan keyin anavsi copyright tugaydi. O'shandan keyin digitalize qilish mumkin dedi. O'sha uchun ham sen bestsellerlarni, hozirgi bestsellerlarni topolmaysan. Hammasi ana bo'ladi, eski bo'ladi dedi. O'sha uchun ham C bo'ldi. Ana ham aytdi. Trudy aytdi. u qiyin konsentratsiya qila olmayman, ko'p vaqt ketadi. Voy, men buni yoqadi menga. Bu personal preference bo'lsa kerak edi. Shuning uchun ham AP bo'lmadi, chunki ular agree qilmadi bitta gapda. Mana are mostly out of copyright, aren't they? Copyright in this country takes 70 years, so you won't find the latest bestseller or up-to-date information. So o'rnasidan topolmaysiz. That's an important point. Bu rost bo'ldi. Hard to concentrate, takes longer than on risk. Oh, prefer it. I suppose just a personal preference. Bu hammani o'zini shaxsiy preference bo'lsa kerak, предпочтенияsi bo'lsa kerak edi. O'sha uchun ham AB chiqib ketdi.
On evolving in the next few years. Some have already become centres where community activities take place, like local clubs meeting there. I think that'll become even more common.
I'd like to think so. And that they'll still be serving their traditional function. But I'm not so sure. There are financial implications after all. What I'm afraid will happen is that books and magazines will all disappear and there'll just be rows and rows of computers. They won't look anything like the libraries we're used to.
Well, we'll see.
Siz nima dedi? Ana aytdi. True aytdi, B bo'ladi dedi. Stewart aytdi, men o'ylaymanki, anaqa qilaman. Hope dedi. Ожидаю, что bo'ladi, A bo'ladi dedi, lekin men unaqa deb o'ylamayman dedi. Men qo'rqqan deganim, hamma jurnal bilan newspaper yo'qolib ketadi, просто kompyuter turadi dedi. Mana I think life will go on evolving next year. Some will have become centers where community activities will take place, local clubs. It will become even more common. Bu true dening gapi, B true dening gapi, uchun chiqib ketdi. They will be serving their production. I'm not sure mana. Stewart gapi. Traditional funksiyasini bajaradi deb umid qilaman, lekin men o'zimga o'ylar emasman bu haqida. Ham chiqib ketdi. Mana what I'm afraid will happen. Bu nima o'yladi deb qo'rqamanki, o'ylaymanki, sinonim. Books and magazines will disappear and there will be just rows and rows of computers bo'ladi javob. Tamom. Javob C bo'ldi. Keyingiga o'tamiz. One word only, faqatgina bitta gap yozamiz, bitta so'z yozamiz. Study of local libraries, possible questions. Possible taxminiy savollar. Ko'ramiz. Into account. Why? Whether it has of its own. Nimaga o'zini nimadir bo'lish kerak? Nimasi bo'lishi mumkin? Joyi bo'lishi mumkin, lokatsiyasi bo'lishi mumkin, buildingi bo'lishi mumkin, bilmayman, ko'ramiz. Policy regarding noise of various kinds, how it's affected by laws regarding all aspects of qanaqa qilib o'zgargan, qanaqadir lawlar bo'yicha, how the design needs to take the of its customers into account. Demak, design customerni nimasidir o'ziga olish kerak. E'tiborga olish kerak. What something is required in case of accident. Qanaqa accidentlar bo'lib qolganda, неприятный случайлар bo'lib qolganda qanaqa nima aniq qilingan. Требуется. Why a famous person's located in the library. Famous person mashhur odam nimasidir joylashgan ekan. Whether it has a of local nimasidir, local organizationlarni nimasidir bo'lish bormi yo'qmi? How it's different from library in a. Qayoqdagidir librarydan farqi bormi? 30 qayoqdagi bo'lsa joy bo'ladi, place bo'ladi. Local organizatsiya nimasidir bo'lsa thing bo'ladi, qanaqadir item bo'lish kerak. 28 ham qanaqadir item bo'ladi, nimadir odamni narsasi. 27 bilmayman. Action bo'lishi mumkin. 26 nimadir, xaridor nimadir. Ko'ramiz, qisqasi topamiz o'zimiz. Let's go.
Before you hear the rest. Now,
Make an in-depth.
Ko'ramiz. Boshladik.
Now listen and answer questions 24 to 30.
I've just had an idea. Why don't we make an in-depth study of our local public library as background to our paper?
Yes, that'd be interesting. And raise all sorts of issues. Let's make a list of possible things we could ask about. Then work out some sort of structure. For instance, we could interview some of the staff and find out whether the library has its own budget or if that's controlled by the local council.
Has its own budget or it's controlled by council, dedi? Has a budget. O'zini anosi bormi? Fondi bormi yoki local council tomonidan boshqarib pul qilib boriladimi? That would be interesting. Raise also issues, make a list of possible things. We could ask, for instance, we could interview some of the staff, find out whether the library has its own budget or if that's controlled by the council. Job budget.
And what their policies are. I know they don't allow food, But I'd love to find out what types of noise they ban. There always seems to be a lot of talking, but never music. I don't know if that's a policy or it just happens.
I've often wondered. Then there are things like how the library is affected by employment laws. I suppose there are rules about
Employment laws regarding all aspects of employment bo'ladi javob. Employment laws bo'ldi javob. Keyingisiga o'tamiz. Yo'q, bir ikki keyingi savoldan o'qish kerak uni. I've often wondered there are things that like how affected what this affecting synonym bor. O'z turibdi employment laws. Employment laws o'ta laws turibdi regarding haqidagi employment bo'ladi qisqasi.
working hours, facilities for staff and so on.
Right. Then there are other issues relating to the design of the building and how customers use it. Like, what measures does the library take to ensure their safety? They need floor coverings that are...
Safety of the customers, ya'ni safety bo'lsa bezopasnost, xavfsizligi. Xaridorlar o'sha foydalanuvchilarning xavfsizligini unaqa qiladigan. Other issues like related design of the building and design turibdi, how consumers use it turibdi, like measures does the library take to ensure their safety, ya'ni ularni xavfsizligini garantirovchi qilish uchun nima qiladi? Qisqa safety bo'ladi javob.
aren't slippery. At emergency exits, for instance. Oh, and another thing, there's the question of the kind of insurance the library needs to have in case anyone gets injured.
Yes, that's...
In case turibdi, anyone gets injured, the accident turibdi. Insurance dedi. What insurance is required? Qanaqadir ana bo'ladi. Insurance страховкада qisqasi. Damn it, man. I made a spelling mistake. Or another thing, there's a question of the kind of insurance the library needs to have in case anyone gets injured. In case turibdi, gets injured, accident synonymi, i plus insurance bu qismda insurance bo'ladi, lekin men spellingda xato qildim. S emas C bo'ladi mana bu. Insurance bilan C bu E bo'lar ekan. Demak, bitta xato qildim o'sha. O'zlaring ko'rganingdek, agar spellingga e'tibor bermasanglar, xato ko'proq bo'ladi. Men ko'rishim kerak, to'g'rimi yo'qmi javob.
Something else to find out. You know something I've often wondered?
What's that?
Well, you know they've got an archive of local newspapers going back years. Well, next to it, they've got the diary of a well-known politician from the late 19th century.
Diary of a well-known politician from late 19th century. Diary bo'lar ekan. Demak, dnevnik, kundalik bo'lar ekan, bor ekan. Well, you know, there's archive of local newspapers going back years. Well, next to it, they have got the diary of a well-known politician from the late 19th century. Javob bo'ladi, diary bo'ladi javob qisqasi. Keyingisi.
I wonder why it's there. Do you know what his connection was with this area?
No idea. Let's add it to our list of things to find out. Well, I've just thought, you know, people might ask in the library about local organisations like sports clubs. Well, I wonder if they keep a database or whether they just look online.
Keep a database or just look online? Database. Database bormi? Yo'q, yoki onlaynga qarab ko'rib beradimi dedi. So, you know, people might ask in the library about local organizations like sport club. Well, I wonder if they keep a database or whether they just look online dedi. Qisqasi, database bormi, yo'qmi shu savol.
Right. I quite fancy finding out what the differences are between a library that's open to the public and one that's part of a museum, for example. They must be very different.
Difference between that's open to the public and part of a museum. Museumni ichidagi muzeyni ichidagi library bilan anoni libraryni farqi dedi. Well, I quite fancy find out the difference between library that is open to the public and that's a part of a museum, for example. Demak, muzeyda ichidagi library haqida gap ketdi. Shuning uchun ham bu museum bo'ldi. Hamma savollarga javob berdik, bitta xato qildik. Agar biror narsaga tushunmay qolgan bo'lsanglar, prosta skriptlarni o'qish kerak, i plus so'zlarni yodlashga harakat qilish kerak bo'ldi. Keyingisiga o'tamiz, section 4 ga o'tishimiz mumkin hozir.